We've said from day one we didn't want to fill up the podcast with adverts, and we're not about to do that. However, podcasts do cost money to make, and thanks to our friends at Viking Covers, we're able to cover some of those. Their values are the same as ours, they're car enthusiasts, and they've got a real quality product we think you might be interested in. If you're looking for indoor or outdoor car covers for your vehicle, please go check them out at vikingcovers.co.uk. Now, over to the show.
Welcome to my dad's car. Enjoy!
Welcome to My Dad's Car, a podcast discussing our personal relationship with automotive nostalgia. And you know what? It doesn't even have to be about your dad's car. It can be your mum's, your grand's, your parents', guardians, or even a neighbour's. If it made an impression, let's talk about it.
Hello, mate.
Hello. How you doing, James?
Hello. Hi, Andy. How are you going?
Yeah, we're good, thank you.
Hello.
Hi, John.
How you doing?
Yeah, very well. Good for a Friday.
Yeah. Bit damp this end, but yeah, can't complain.
So, yeah, for the benefit of the tape, we're joined by James Blaze, who stumbled across what's now your car collection, I guess. What was your late father's car collection on Johnny Smith's Car Cave episode on the Late Break Show. We've had Johnny Smith on as a guest. We've had another previous Car Cave guest, Paul Harding. He's come on the podcast as well. So, yeah, great to have you along today. Welcome along.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. Thank you very much. I've reached out to Johnny. I watched the episode. I've got a 944 myself. So, obviously, yeah, it sort of resonated. I reached out to him and said, I think it might be something James might be interested in. He said, yeah, absolutely. I'll pop him a message and we swapped numbers and we've had a quick natter. So, yeah, here we are. I suppose, yeah, we'll jump into it. What's your earliest car memory, James?
Yeah, probably. I've had a bit of time to have a think about this, and I think for me, when we were growing up, we had two CVs and Diane, Citroen two CVs and Diane.
Okay.
And could fondly remember as a child finishing Sunday school in the summer, and my dad, we all pile into the 2CV with the roll top roof and driving down to the local country park and picnicking out of the back of the 2CV. And I'm pretty sure it had the removable seats as well.
I was going to ask if you could take the seats out.
You could take the seats out, and Mum and Dad would use those as picnic chairs. And but yeah, I just always remember this fond memory of the 2CV and the roll top and its kind of agricultural build and quality. And it was unusual to have a 2CV. I can't really remember any school friends or anybody else really ever having one. So it was, I've got fond memories of that car and those summers. So.
What colour was it?
We had several. The one I'm thinking of is yellow. I actually have a photo of me and my sister in my office here of us standing on the back seat with a hand out of the roll top roof.
Nice.
So yeah, it's fond memory for me. And that particular one was yellow, but we did have a dolly, so the white and red ones.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it was a blue one at one stage, but the most prominent out of all of them was we had a 007 one.
Okay.
I can't remember all of the history, but at some point there was a Diane, I think, in a 007 film, and they had 7 of the cars that they stick it up. They had 007 along the side, and I think it might have been an advertising thing. And we have one of those cars.
Wow.
One of those original film cars. And unfortunately, it was left in a garage on a nice part of an estate in the town that I grew up in. And I think what happened, it was the garage next door. Some kids decided to knock the wall down and then set fire to it, and then eventually it came across into the garage that Dad was renting at the time, and so that was the end of that particular car. I have a photo of it somewhere, but
goodbye, Mr. Bond.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah,
that's a shame, though, isn't it? I've never heard of that edition before. It'd be good to see a photo of, just another one. Just for reference, yeah.
I'll try and dig it out and I'll share it to you guys.
Yeah, sounds good.
What do you think the inspiration was behind the 2CV? Was that your father making those choices, or did your mother drive? Or
she did drive. Mum had a Mini, so she drove around in a Mini for a number of years, and then I think we had. At some point, we ended up with a Morris Minor estate, and that I think was the first car my dad actually owned himself. Rather than my mum had the Mini, and they'd lived in South Africa for a few years. But when they came to the UK, when they moved back, yeah, he had a Morris Minor van, and I think he probably it was a bit rubbish. It was probably very cheap, and it took more maintenance than actual driving. And yeah, I think he just quite liked the idea of a 2CV that he could maintain himself, and it was, cheap and cheerful motoring, but having something that's quite cutesy as well with the roll top roof. My mum loved it, and I think my sister even now would love to have one as like a second car.
Yeah.
But the values of those now are just crazy. I mean, Dad was buying them for like £50, £100 type thing, and yeah, nowadays they're quite valuable, and so be it as well. They're quite they're sought after, and they're cute.
So, am I right in thinking you've got a brother as well?
Yeah.
So, were all three of you, or is there quite an age difference, or were all three of you in the back of a TCV?
Yeah, we were at one point, yes. But yeah, my brother is 4.5 years younger than me, and my sister's 2 years my elder. So those early car memories are really it's between me and my sister, because we were really close in age. And yeah, when my brother came along, we had already by that point moved into a second home, and that's when Dad started buying. I think he bought a Citroen BX.
Fantastic.
Get that in there.
It's obviously a family car. There's a funny story about that as well. We bought this car, bought it, I think, from a garage, and was driving it 2 days later to come pick us up from school, and the engine seized.
Oh, no.
And for some reason, the garage wouldn't give him a warranty, or I can't remember the story, but I then remember Dad taking the engine out and rebuilding it in our shed. And, just was livid about the fact that he'd bought this car, and immediately the engine seized.
Yeah.
But then, that goes on to that whole maintenance thing. He would never really take a car to a garage to service himself. He'd always do it himself, and it's kind of ingrained in us. And I think my wife would say I have a unusual relationship with cars and maintaining cars, because she drives an Audi TT, but in our ownership, it's never been to a garage. So I just do it myself. And I think Dad's certainly set the precedent of that, of rebuilding Citroen engines in our garden shed when I was a kid.
Wow.
Cool. Yeah. So was your father in the automotive industry, or likewise, is that something that you've done, or?
No, neither. He trained as a mechanical engineer.
Okay.
So if you ever asked him what he did, he would always say he was an engineer. In his later life, he ran his own business, and he did reasonably well out of his business. But if anybody asked him, he was always a mechanical engineer. So he had this motto: "What man has made, man can mend," and he really lived his life by that. Sometimes it was out of necessity, whereby we would fix stuff because it was cheaper for him to do it himself than it was to take it to a garage or whatnot. So we often had not very great cars growing up, just because they'd been bought cheap. Dad would buy MOT failures so that it was cheaper, knowing that he could do the work, get it through an MOT and use a car for a year. And it's kind of ingrained in us that whole, we'll just fix it ourselves.
Great motto. I think I have to start saying that to my wife just to annoy her. I won't be able to fix it, but I can say it.
Yeah, it was always very mechanically minded, and it was clear that there was, him being an engineer was a huge part of who he was. I mean, in his house, the room opposite the kitchen, which most people would use as a snug, is a workshop with a lathe and a milling machine. So, that's perhaps single life. He'd never got away with that with my mother, but he just lived and breathed it. So
your mother, I guess, I don't know the story, but she sort of put up with the fact that he would buy a bargain and fix it. She wasn't kind of like, no, we want a proper car.
Yeah, I think a lot of that was out of necessity. I think, do it on the cheap always, and, maybe sometimes try and make a bit of money. I remember when, I think the first proper big estate car we ever bought was a Peugeot 505 estate, a huge, long one.
Yeah.
And it was a 7-seater. And Dad bought it cheap off this guy because the rule for wearing a seatbelt came in, and this guy said, it's not safe for my kids. I can't get it through an MOT anymore. So, I'm going to have to sell it. So Dad bought it cheap, went down to the local scrapyard, stripped out seatbelts and, fitted them into this car.
Nice.
And I remember we had my cousins who were two elder cousins from South Africa. They came and visited us for a summer. And we toured Europe, toured France in this Peugeot 505 with 7 seats. And of course, because he bought it cheap and it had all the seatbelts in it, at the end of the summer when he came to sell it, he could make a bit of money on it because all of a sudden it was safe and it had seatbelts, etc.
Yeah.
Little things like that. And it's like, he'd look at an opportunity and be like, oh, I can make something of this. So,
Absolutely.
Excellent.
So driving across Europe, for example, in that, would you have the radio on? Would you have music playing and anything kind of rings a bell?
yeah. So, I grew up in a Christian household and I always remember CDs and tapes of like Christa Berg.
Okay.
And my dad was a Pink Floyd fan as well, so there was always a lot of Pink Floyd. Dark Side to the Moon. The CD is probably worn thin in his CD collection. So yeah, there's always a lot of that. But my dad, when he was younger, was a bit of a rocker. So yeah, Pink Floyd, Sassafras, I seem to remember, Supertramp. Yeah, a lot of those would be in our memory. But I specifically remember in those early trips, like Christa Berg, and I couldn't remember some of the others, but particularly those albums like Pink Floyd.
Lady in Red, Christa Berg, is that right?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Thought so.
Fantastic. The video you filmed with Jonny, your father kind of got into Skodas.
Yeah.
So it seems like he's sort of favoured an underdog.
Yeah, always.
He's gone 2CV and yeah.
Yeah, it was really funny, the first Skoda that came along. So that was the one in the video, the modified one in the trials was his first one that he bought.
Yeah.
And he liked the fact that it was known as being a bit of a skip. The joke, Skoda with a sunroof is just a glorified skip.
Yeah.
And so he quite liked that, but actually they're really simple, very easy to maintain, and they have this rally pedigree. And he wanted to do the MCC trialing. That's why he bought it.
Yeah.
So very quickly it was modified with the race suspension, started fettling some of the tuning. So it started out with an Ashley exhaust system, and then later down the line there was weather carburetors and some real tuning. But in the years where there was the foot and mouth disease, I can't remember, it would have been 2007-ish, somewhere around there. In those MCC trialing, every time you did one of the climbs, they would wash the underside of the cars. So the original car, or the original shell, just got pretty badly rotten from that year, and he ended up reshelling it at some point.
Okay.
And part of doing that, he took a reasonably good shell and sort of strengthened it in places which he knew it was weak. And I guess that's part of, by that point, he'd been trialling for about 6 or 7 years. So the rear end particularly is modified to allow it to put the power down. And the engine now it's been through various different variants, but it's about 130 horsepower.
Good stuff.
I would be surprised if the car weighed more than 600 kilos. So it's really quick off the mark.
Yeah.
And in the trialing for the MCC, he always did pretty well. I mean, I've got stacks of medals of like class awards and gold award, silver award from when he was doing the trialing. And unfortunately, I never got to do a trial with him. It just never landed where the dates where I was able to join him and do navigating. But it was the Edinburgh trial last weekend up in Derbyshire, and one of my dad's friends who's doing through trialing had messaged me saying, would you like to navigate for me? And my dad had navigated for him at some point last year, so it was nice to get the experience of it, and to have the memories knowing Dad had been sat in the same seat and thinking about him a lot over the day. But one thing it has done is fizzed me up. Get his car sorted. I need to replace the tyres and stuff, but get it prepped and do a couple of the events next year. So,
do you know how your dad got involved in the trialing? Was it something that he was hankering after for a long time, or? Yeah,
so he was down in the Land's End at some point. There happened to be an event on, and he was watching it thinking, it would have been 1998, somewhere around there, maybe 97. He was with my sister. And they're down on the south coast. The Land's End trial was on. He's watching all these cars. Everybody's having fun. There's not a single person here that's not enjoying themselves, even when it goes wrong and people are pushing you up the hill. Everyone looked like it was enjoyable. So then he started looking around. And for a little while, there was talk of Beetle. Beetle was really competitive in Class 4 in the MCC. But he was pretty set on the Skoda on the fact that you could buy one really, really cheap. His one, I think now, to correct what I talked about with Jonny, it was £40 at the back of a local Vauxhall dealership.
Wow.
And he said he'd seen this car the day before and it said £200 on it. Passed it in the morning, it was £100. He said, that's peculiar. It's half the price. Maybe it's worth a look. Halfway through the day, I had to nip out to go to the post office. and cycling his bike past, and then it's £50. So he went in, and Dad said, "What's going on with this then?" It was £200, now it's 100, now it's 50, and the guy said, "The scrap man comes at 2. So do you want it then or what?" So he placed £40 down, and he took it away.
But some sort of variable rate car dealer. It's going to fluctuate.
They're not like that nowadays, are they? I mean,
No.
even the chance of finding a trade-in under £500 nowadays is rare. But those different times, I guess.
Yeah. Well, you couldn't even fill a car now. Well, half a tank might be 40 quid if you're lucky, mightn't it? But
yeah, exactly.
I suppose it's all relative, but
yeah.
So did he use the Skoda as kind of a daily driver as well? Or was that just the sort of the weekend toy?
Yeah, one of his big things was he wanted to know that it worked and it was reliable. So he used it to make sure that it was good. I memean, it was the second car for him in many ways, but because it was modified, he quite enjoyed driving it through the town. He lived in Melton Mowbray at the time, and you see the boy racer at the lights with his Citroen Saxo, laughing at the fact that there's some cruddy old Skoda next to him get a shock at the lights. He really enjoyed that by the fact that let's face it, as cool as they are now, back in the late 90s, early 2000s, they didn't have a great reputation.
No.
They were always a bit of a joke. And the funniest one out of all the stories, because he would buy the Skodas around just to get parts, the Estelles particularly, is there was one advertised in the paper. I think it was £100 or £50 advertised in the paper. So I'll go and get that. And he said it was a runner. Turns up, and the guy said, they wouldn't let me put it in the paper for free. So I had to put a price on it, but you can just take it away. And he said he drove it home. It didn't have brakes, so he had to drive home on the handbrake and using the gears to shift brake.
Yeah.
But that was an absolute classic out of my dad's car stories, particularly with the Skodas.
The funny thing is, he'd have probably paid £50 for it.
Yeah.
I mean, to him, it might be the doors were worth 50 quid to him or whatever it might be. Or, I think in the early days, he went through sumps quite a lot until he actually manufactured, well, I say manufactured, he welded up his own 3mm steel sump that is now on the trials car. So instead of running a sump guard where rocks could get caught underneath and bash the existing sump, he just made his own one. So welded it up and never had an issue with sump since. But
Wow. Was there anything that he couldn't lend his hand to, James, in the workshop? Doesn't sound like
not
it.
Really. No. So I touched on some of the videos with Jonny around. At some point in his later life, he was doing a lot of stuff with steam railways. So he would travel the world to go and have a look at, travel steam railways, but mainly just to photograph them. And he got in with a company who chartered steam locos primarily for photographers. So they'd run it as a special and they'd sell tickets so people could ride on it. But for the group, it was more around being able to photograph steam engines in these really peculiar environments. So he went out to Sri Lanka a few times, and the loco that they had there had some engineering problems. It wasn't firing correctly. So my dad flew out, took some measurements, diagnosed what it was, and it was determined it was the piston rings and the valve stem seals. And so flew out just to measure, flew back, couldn't trust that somebody in Sri Lanka was going to do the work that he wanted in the quality that it needed to be, so machined them on his lathe at home, and then didn't trust the shipping, so flew out with them to fit them. He was out there for, I think, 3 weeks where they stripped all the pistons down and refit them. So he did make one extra, so I have. To anybody else, it's just a random metal, steel, or iron ring. But I know there are 16 others that are in a steam loco in Sri Lanka. And now that engine's still running really well. I think for him, it was more, there's so few now, and it probably would have got scrapped had he not given it the new lease of life that he gave it by getting it on the road. So to answer your question, no, there's not a lot that he couldn't do.
No.
And that's just one example. He would do home plumbing and home electrics. And when it came to cars, there was nothing really that he wouldn't take on. I remember my first, or it must have been my second car, had an issue with the gearbox. And instead of just going to the scrap, like scrapping the car, buying something else, it was, no, let's strip it apart, work out what's wrong, buy the parts, rebuild the gearbox. So I did that at 19, and it's definitely ingrained into me of like, well, yeah, you have these problems, but there's a way of solving them without it costing, I don't know what a spare gearbox would have cost, probably £500. It probably would have had the same problem. So, yeah.
Brilliant.
Yeah, what a clever chap. To have, I'm fairly hands-on, but just, to have the confidence and the machinery and everything to just back yourself up where you could just take anything apart. If anything goes wrong, you're just going to make a new one.
Yeah, totally.
I think pre-YouTube era as well.
Yeah.
It'd just be from knowledge and I guess books, that sort of thing, and previous experience. But yeah, phenomenal, really, isn't it?
Yeah, he was a really clever chap. Nowadays, I maintain our car collection and have been doing for a couple of years, but there's nothing really that worries me or that's too over the top to take on.
Okay.
At the moment, I've got one of the 968s on the ramp. There's a gearbox issue with it, so just dropping the gearbox out to have a look at the pinion bearing in that. So, most circumstances with 968 owners would probably take it to a specialist and use the pound sign to fix the problem. Whereas I was brought up a different way to think about it. Well, give it a go. And if I get to a point where I can't do it and I need to ask my dad something, nowadays I'm going to have to ask a specialist. But I've got a reasonable idea of that I could get it sorted. So as much as sometimes I leave the workshop and I think, I've been under a car for 6 hours and was that the best use of my Saturday? Not sure. I would have rather go driving. So
you obviously mentioned the 968 there. For those people who have seen the video with Jonny, your father got into Porsches, which I guess a little bit of a jump, although some of them would be rear-engined. But how did that happen? And I suppose, what were your thoughts on him having Skodas? Were you of an age where you kind of thought this is a bit embarrassing? Or
yeah, totally. But yeah, I have a video, an audio recording of my dad. Just me, my dad, and my brother chatting about cars. And in that, I think Dad was talking about early days of the Skoda, where we're driving through town, and it's him and I'm in the passenger seat, and he said he gets this set of traffic lights, and all of a sudden I've disappeared into the footwell. He's like, what are you doing, James? And I was like, yeah, I know those people. So there was definitely an element of that with the Skoda early on. But to touch on the Porsche element, at some point, I think my dad quite liked the 924s. So he had a Golf GTI that he was commuting to work in, and we had that big estate car, that Peugeot, and so it'd be good, for my mum to have a car to do the school runs, etc. So he bought a 924.
how very nice.
And it was a base model. It wasn't a great car. It was pretty rotten underneath. I think we only had it for 1 year because it wouldn't have got through the next MOT.
Yeah.
But it sort of planted the seed. He quite liked driving it. It was, even the basic ones they're really nice to drive. They're 50-50 weight distribution. You can have fun on a back road without really going too quickly. And then at some point, he was like, a 924 turbo would be good, a bit more power, which is the problem with the base 924. So, he bought a 924 turbo that had a blown turbo. It was on eBay. It was cheap. So he bought this car, or my brother convinced him to knock a bid on it, and then he ended up buying this car, and he fixed the turbo to it. And I think we were using it for one spring. We'd gone out to Wales. We were, having a nice drive, really enjoying it. And I think third gear blew on the gearbox. So it was like the first proper trip in it. And he was like, well, okay, typical, something else to fix now. So got that up and running again. And it was around for a few years. And then I think, the problem with the 924s, they are pretty basic and they're quite old as well. Even by that point, they were talking early 2000s. The car in question was in 1979. So it was getting on a bit and didn't have a lot of the modern things you'd like power steering, for instance.
Yeah.
So started looking at 944s, but at one point my dad was driving on the 924 and he saw it coming in the other direction, a car that was like the same silhouette, the same sort of shape, but it had stickers down the side of it. So he was explaining to my brother who'd seen this car, he was like, what is that? And my brother said, that's where you're going. You'll have one of those one day. And it was a 968. So he kind of stopped looking at 944s and sort of started looking at 968s and ended up buying an eBay listed 968 Sport.
Okay.
That was a really lovely car. That it was under 100,000 miles when he bought it. He bought it in 2005 or 2006, and it arrived at home. He hadn't told me anything about buying it. It arrived at home, and I was like, "Wow, this is a real lovely bit of kit."
Yeah.
So Justin is really going to love this car. Justin's my brother. He said, "Yeah, we should do something like to show it off. We'll go to Wales or something." And my brother was living in Colchester. And it was around that time that Top Gear, they'd done the transit challenge around the Nürburgring. And I said, we could go to the Nürburgring. Anyway, this is us in the pub on a Friday night. Well, no, it was a Thursday night. I was working in the pub on the Friday. Anyway, so Friday night, I'm behind the bar, and Dad comes in. He said, "Right, we're going to leave at 2. Leave for what?" And he's like, "Yeah, we're going to the Nürburgring." Okay, so he didn't tell my brother. He just said, "Look, I'm picking you up. We're going to do a day of photography. Bring some ID." So Justin's like, "Oh," he didn't have a driving license at that point. He said, "Oh, I could bring my student ID or my passport." Yeah, bring your passport. Anyway, so I finished work, go to bed, get up 2:00. We set off. We drove from his house to Colchester to the Nürburgring and back again.
Wow.
The plan was to do it in 24 hours. We didn't quite make it. There was something wrong with the ferry, but yeah, it was 27 hours, so a day of driving for my father. And yeah, we had some fun around the Nürburgring. I can't remember if we did 4 or 8 laps, but he'd only owned it for about 2 weeks at this point. It was just that idea of being able to own these cars, but use them in a way that was quite fun. And one thing I remember, the jump from the 924 to the 968 was considerable.
Okay.
Not only that it was 15 years of extra development, but the engine and the way those cars drive with the sport is a lovely bit of kit. They're just fantastic. And they are lesser known. You don't see many around. Although funny enough, I went to we have a local car meet towards Ignition Cars and Coffee, and the last time I turned up there was a guy who'd just bought one.
Oh wow!
And that's really the only one. The only other one, unless I go to a proper Porsche show, the only one I've really seen on the road. So it was nice to have a chat with him. So.
Who got the short straw and sat in the back? I don't think I want to do a day in the back of a transaxle Porsche.
Yeah, me and my brother, we shared the back seat. They're quite compact in the back, so
you sit across,
yeah,
with your legs in the other side.
God,
legs in the footwell behind the driver, and then sat in the so not the most comfortable, but amazing bit of kit. I mean, those 968s have really never ever let us down. We then went on to buy other 968s, and we ended up, I think at one point there was 7 in the collection.
jeez.
And none of them have really needed anything major. Probably the biggest one is this one that needs a pinion bearing in the gearbox. But apart from that, everything has just been belts, water pumps, and regular oil services, and the usual sort of things like suspension as they wear out. Those cars are getting on for 33 years old now. So.
Has the original 968, has that now gone?
Yeah. So off the back of the video I did with Jonny, a guy contacted me. He never owned a Porsche. He never even heard of a 968, but he loved the story and loved I don't think realistically he could have stretched into a pristinely immaculate 968 Sport, and that car had a lot of paint fade and etc. And so he came to have a look at it and knew he was sort of buying a project. It's from a car that had been off the road, I think, probably maybe 12 years at this point. But yeah, he's absolutely loving it. And I recommissioned it to get it back on the road, and we had a donor car, a car that had been in an accident, but I don't think I took anything off it apart from a wing, because it was better painted red than the one that was on the other car. So yes, water pumps, belts, and all the fluid changes, and went through an MOT, and it's happy as Larry. So yeah,
Nice,
fantastic.
Yeah, he's really enjoying it, and I'm glad it's gone to an owner who's new to the Porsche world and is just loving it. So
Jonny didn't ask for a 3% referral.
No, he didn't, gladly. But unfortunately, my dad, passed away at the end of last year, and I just was a bit overwhelmed with, I've been sort of managing the collection for a while, and he just didn't want to see stuff go down the driveway and never see it again. So it kind of waited for him to pass to sort of start moving stuff on, but. It's a lot of work to maintain a car collection. I think in total we have 24 cars. So, it's dwindled down a lot now. There was a lot of scrap. There was several Skodas that were just realistically just scrap. But it's nice that they're being loved and enjoyed now, because the reality is that, my brother lives overseas. And for me, owning one 968 Clubsport would be a dream to me. So the fact that I've got 4 in a garage doesn't really make sense. I'd much rather than be loved and enjoyed than them just be potentially, future investments. I'm sort of thinning the collection out as we've got it, but for me, I can't keep them all. My dad had an amazing garage, and I just don't have that capability to store them all in the future. So,
is there anything that he didn't get his hands on that you think was kind of like maybe a dream car or in that bracket?
Yeah, I mean, his real dream, if he could have ever afforded it, would have been a Jaguar XJ220.
Oh, really?
And it was just one of the things he just loved the shape of that car. And I think when the banks crashed 2008, he said one came up for sale for 85 grand.
Wow.
Which in today's money, I mean, anything under 100 at that point would have been an absolute mega bargain. But he'd just bought a couple of 968s and he'd just bought a 911 as well. I mean, it was just no practical way for him to have purchased that. But that would have been the only opportunity to have got into that car.
Yeah.
But, when we talk about poster cars, he always loved the 924 and particularly the Carrera GT. So when we bought our 924 Carrera GT, that was a very special moment, particularly for him, because when I was growing up as a child, under the age of 10, we didn't have a lot of money. He was successful in his business and he made money later in life, which was great because it gave him the freedom to buy the cars that he always pined for, but also buy the property that he ended up living in to the end of his life and being that as a workshop. But also for him, he was a big traveller. So he travelled the world to photograph steam engines, but also at least twice a year would take cars out to Europe. And he used to do an event called the Tour de Cols. It's a week-long event where you get an itinerary. It's almost like a road rally, an itinerary of coals. You've got to go reach the top of all these coals. And I think the rule was it had to be in an open-top car. And that was it. As long as it was open top, it was fine. So we had a 968 Cabriolet that we used a lot. But then also the Allard, we got an Allard J2 M-Type. And that's probably not the most comfortable car to drive across Europe. But he did, we took it down to the Pyrenees in Spain. And so he definitely used them as much as possible, but also just loved Europe, loved the Pyrenees and the Alps. So we used to go out a lot. And we talk about trips like doing the Nürburgring. The fondest memories of trips in 968 for me was always around his birthday. Him and I, or me, him and my brother, would go out to the Alps, so go up to Switzerland in a 968 of some sort. And we called it pass bashing. So we'd go and just drive as many roads as we could up all these incredible mountain passes. So they're probably my fondest memories of 968 adventures with Dad, for sure.
Excellent.
Fantastic. Do you think, maybe a silly question, given the opportunity, would you buy an XJ220 as a homage to what your dad was after?
Yeah, I'm never going to be in a position to buy one of these values. But I think if there was a blank check all of a sudden came my way, I think I probably would have to buy one for his sake. But I think if it was me, I'd be in an F40 personally.
Yeah, fair.
But he would have never have had a Ferrari, so I don't think it would have been the sort of thing. But he loved the Jag. I mean, they're a beautiful car. My brother is, he was always into them as well. Touched on this with Jonny, but we're looking at buying a 94 Carrera GT. He really, really wanted a GTS, a 94 Carrera GTS, but
there can't be many of those about.
I think there's 20.
Yeah.
So there's not very many.
But not even a blank check would get one of those.
No, well, I mean, they do hold. I mean, they've really gone up substantially in value. And I mean, there was one he was looking at in 2005, and it would have been around the same time that he was looking at 968s. But he was not long into the business by that point, so really committing that kind of funds to buying a GTS, just knowing it was so special and that it was so limited. But, the 94 Carrera GT, it's an amazing car. I had it out. I took it for a drive on his birthday. I had this vision in my head. I'm going to drive country roads through Rutland, park up in a cafe somewhere and have a coffee and a cake and stare out at it. But I got as far as 3 miles because one of the brakes was binding.
Oh, no.
It wasn't a pleasant drive, and then the engine stopped about 150 metres back from the workshop. So not the idealistic drive for my dad's birthday that I'd wanted, but it's back and running now, so I've got it all sorted. But you have to use cars. That's what I've realised. And I have a collection of keys at home, and I always just seem to pick up the red 968 Clubsport keys all the time. It's the car that I've done the most mileage in this year, aside from my daily driver.
Yeah.
And I think because of that, there's other cars that are getting neglected. And I don't really want that. Cars are meant to be used and loved and enjoyed. I used the 928 a little bit this year.
Okay.
Nice.
That thing is a really, really fun car. It's so underrated in comparison to a 911.
Yeah.
My dad always used to say that the 928 was the first car that Porsche properly developed. It was what they decided the market should be. Because prior to that, your eras of 911, essentially the same thing. The 924 should have been a Volkswagen. So the 928 was the first that they developed in-house and unfortunately got crippled by the oil crisis with that big V8.
Car of the year in 78 or something like that, wasn't it?
Yeah, yeah. And I think the early ones weren't that great, but the GT is an incredible car. Just a lot more power than the 968s, and on the open road, it's super comfortable. And you could tell that they were just a completely different development era. And when you look at the way that 993 sort of led on from sort of the late 928, there's a lot that sort of translates. You know, a lot of the switching all looks the same and stuff like that. So it's interesting how they win. But it's a shame the 928 in that kind of form doesn't exist in Porsche's lineup now. I guess the Panamera came along, but they were always a four-door and not like a two-door transaxle coupe.
Yeah.
That's kind of missing from their lineup. I mean, I know Aston Martin do them pretty well now with the DB9s and Vantages and stuff, and they're also great cars, but kind of feels like there's a gap in Porsche's lineup that needs to be filled. For modern eras, anyway.
Yeah. If you're listening, Porsche.
Porsche's space. Yeah.
Well, yeah, thank you very much for coming on and having a chat about your dad's cars.
Yeah, no problem. Yeah, thanks for having me.
It's been nice. I think we could probably talk for hours and hours. I expect there's similar to my situation, really. Yeah, lots of car stories. And the more you unwrap it, the more they come out. And you're like, oh, but there was this one time that this one's really good. And it's, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And, like I'm very lucky. My father was a huge part of my life, and he was very influential on not only my car choices, but, like how I want to live my life. And it was definitely an inspiration, whether that be with cars or cycling or just general traveling. Yeah, he certainly left his impression on me, but also has really left a hold. It's really been hard to. It's been a tough year to sort of deal with his loss, but to have his car collection and the things that we enjoyed so much has been wonderful. And yeah, I could talk for hours and hours about different stories and trips and stuff that we went on, but that's not going to stop me.
No. Have you got children, James? To kind of
no kids. My wife and I have decided not to have kids, but we love to travel.
Yeah.
We spent a number of years over in New Zealand in the past decade, and that was really fun. But we decided to move back purely to support my dad while he was terminally ill. And I'm so grateful we did, because it was very easy to have swung the other way, particularly when we lived a few hundred meters from the beach. And it's been. Yeah, more sure to say.
It's tough. Right? John and I are both kind of in similar sort of situations, although kind of at opposite ends of the spectrum. My dad was terminally ill. John, on the other hand, he went on holiday, and his father kind of popped off while he was away, which
that's good of him. I mean, my loss is nearly 20 years now, isn't it, Andy? You're more like 10, aren't you? Something like that.
8 years, I think, something like that.
Yeah. I mean, still very early days for you, James. But yeah, like you say, you've got lots of incredible memories, to be honest. And all those cars that live on and can be enjoyed is a massive bonus, isn't it?
Yeah, totally. And I think if anything, like the 968 Sport that went a couple of weeks ago, it's given somebody else, handing the keys over, someone who I know is going to love it. Like my dad loved it when he first got it, and if that's his legacy, to be able to get somebody else into cars and enjoying them, then I think that's a nice thing for him to have done.
Yeah.
It's great that's a new story.
But yeah, that's chapter one, isn't it, of someone else's story, and that is kind of someone else, friends and family or whatever. And potentially, 20, 30 years' time, they could then have conversations like we're having today, which is, because of this car that I bought from this chap and I saw on this video, we go and do this trip every year. And all of a sudden.
That's the beauty of old cars, isn't it, really? And, old things that can be recycled. Old stuff should be recycled, shouldn't it? And enjoyed again and again.
Yeah. It's not an environmental thing per se, because ultimately you're buying a 3-litre Porsche. But there's life in so much stuff. Stolen stuff is scrapped or written off, and I don't really understand this kind of throwaway leasing lifestyle. You see so many new cars on people's driveways. Reality is they don't own them.
No.
And certainly from my dad's perspective, own everything. Don't lease it or rent it if you can. And we've always been in a fortunate position where we've owned cars. We haven't had to lease or finance, etc.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people are disconnected with vehicles nowadays because of that culture. You've got to have a car that's 2 or 3 years old on the driveway. keeping up with the Joneses type thing, always have a new car. But people fear cars so much that they'll sell a car after 3 years because, well, it's going to go wrong. So why not? But the oldest car in our collection was from 1954. And I wouldn't even think about it if I decided to go out for a drive in it tomorrow, turn the key, make sure the tyres are pumped up, and I'll go and use it for a drive. So I think people are very disconnected with reliability of cars. And they always take a bit of maintenance, but it's part of the enjoyment.
Yeah.
Otherwise, why am I driving a 33-year-old 968 when I could be driving a 3-year-old 911? At least up to my eyeballs. Doesn't make sense to me.
No.
I guess somewhere, and I don't know where it was, maybe it was in the late 80s, early 90s or something like that, we were kind of sold that new cars were better, weren't we? And probably through that time, all the refinements were coming in, weren't they? Like power steering was far, far more common. Electric windows was far, far more common.
Yeah.
Air conditioning was becoming sort of more of a thing, especially in the more luxury cars at that time. So people were getting used to that, weren't they? And then the jump between the sort of the 80s car and the car from the early noughties is fairly big with those refinements, depending what you want the car for. If you want a kind of an engaging drive, you want the 80s car every day, don't you? If you want to get to work and not be freezing cold and not have ice on the inside of your windscreen, then the car from post-millennium is the one. But
yeah, I agree with that. But I think we're in an era of the iPhone. You buy a new iPhone every year because it was better. And in many ways, I think people did that with cars because you're buying new features and stuff that your car may not have, whether it's electric windows or power steering or anything like you just touched on there. But nowadays, there's no point in buying the new iPhone because it's basically the same as it was since the iPhone 12. So they're all just so small incremental updates. And I think that's that way about new cars now. They can't offer me anything more than if I went and bought a early 2000s BMW 5 Series.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, as it happens, my contract was up earlier in the year, and I was like, no, I'm just going to keep it. And it's now £16 a month, not 50 or something. I was like, I don't need 7 cameras.
yeah, totally agree.
I think there's definitely touched upon people fear stuff going wrong, but I think there is an aspect of things probably are more likely to go wrong now with some of the more high-tech vehicles.
And then you have to go to a garage.
I mean, yeah, some of the newer stuff, you probably could open the bonnet, but then whether you can actually do anything under there or not is another question. So, yeah, I mean, it just drives that throwaway nature, doesn't it, I suppose?
Yeah, I feel like it's been manufactured almost.
Yeah.
That you make it so complicated that people fear it. Whereas if we go back to the basics, it's still just put fuel and air in, mix it together and light it, and you get, propulsion at the end of it. So it's a dark art to most, but actually I think with the way that knowledge is now, particularly around YouTube or even just online content, there's no reason to fear it, particularly anything pre-2015, there's no reason to fear it. Anything from there starts to get a bit more too modern, too reliant on being able to plug an Autel into it and understand what the next code is on your dashboard.
Yeah,
definitely. Well, yeah, it won't keep you any longer, but thank you very much for taking a bit of time to have a chat with us, and very nice to meet you. And hopefully we'll bump into each other at some point, and we could talk about transaxle Porsches.
Yeah, I'd love that.
for hours and hours and hours.
If you both make it there.
James will.
Yeah, that's true.
Okay. Thank you very much, James. Yeah, appreciate you coming on.
Thanks, James.
Yeah, thanks, guys. Nice to have a chat, and hopefully it's got some content for you.
It would be great.
Absolutely.
It would be great.
Cool. All right. See you. Bye.
Fantastic. There was a lot going on there, isn't there?
Yeah, really good. Yeah.
What a cool dad. He sounds like a cool dad.
Nothing is impossible sort of dad, isn't it, really? Literally anything could be tackled.
Yeah. And I love the fact that there's people out there, and even still to this day with him, really, that it's just like, I've got a problem with third gear, I just got to take the gearbox out. I'll do that. It's like,
yeah,
I think I'd have stopped at that point. Like, maybe I'd investigated some rattles or done a few bits, but I probably wouldn't be taking the gearbox out for a quick peep just to see what it could be.
Yeah, it just really shows incredible intelligence, doesn't it, to be able to do that? And if you're that's not even your day job, it's I know you're an engineer and you've learned this stuff on other things, but to just see something for what it is and think, oh, I can strip that and do that. And and like I said on the recording, pre-YouTube, all you've really got is books and I don't know, maybe picking the brains of the odd friend here and there if you've got someone up your sleeve. But
Yeah, exactly.
incredible.
It is nuts and bolts. So, but it is one thing to take it apart. It's another thing to work out what it is and then actually put it back together again.
Yeah.
And then trust it enough to drive it to Europe or something. So,
Yeah.
yeah, hats off to him.
Yeah, it's a great story, isn't it? Getting a nice vehicle like that and then just saying, let's go to Germany and use it. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, very cool.
Kind of the opposite, I suppose, to a lot of people that get a nice vehicle, tucking it away and never really using it.
Yeah.
They used it, everyone could see it, and yeah.
I think, from my own point of view, like I get enjoyment out of sharing my car with other people. So it sounds like, his father was probably, of a similar ilk that actually, these things are far more fun if you do share them.
Yeah.
And experience them with other people.
Yeah.
It's quite fun, isn't it? Like, obviously, very humble beginnings, kind of the 2CV at a point when, 2CVs were 50 quid. And, never really kind of pushed by the sounds of things for having the latest and greatest, but did some hard work, kind of put the hours in and came good in the end.
Yeah, I suppose as well, when, like you say, you went for unfashionable vehicles, but in the long run, those vehicles they are fashionable, aren't they? And they're good cars.
Oh yeah, all three of those, like the Skodas, the 2CVs, and the Porsches. Like, probably when he was getting into the Porsches, like they weren't kind of the pick of the bunch by any means. That was a bit of a sort of a forgotten Porsche, really.
Yeah. By all accounts, the XJ 220 was a bit of a pig, wasn't it? I think it had incredible turbo lag, didn't it?
Yeah, quite possibly. I was looking over my shoulder somewhere. I think in that box I've got I've got a modern one.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, I think I had one as well, actually.
There we go.
That's a biggie. Wow. What's that?
It's
not 118, is it? It looks bigger.
It's a Maisto. I think I remember.
Yeah.
I remember getting this. I think it was like in a Tesco's at Christmas one year.
Huge thing. Oh, you got the engine thing up as well.
Yeah, engine lid opens. Doesn't want to close it properly. I'm not going to try and break it. Yeah, doors, bonnet, and all the rest. Yeah, lovely model.
Yeah. I mean, that's probably one of my earliest car memories when I think about it. Like when that was coming along, because it was so far in front of what was the previous for? Was it the F40 or the Porsche? They were sort of neck and neck, weren't they? Ish.
There was a few others. It was a race for 200 miles an hour, wasn't it?
Yeah, and then that sort of smashed it, didn't it? 220. Well, 220, obviously.
Yeah.
And then the McLaren came and did 242 or something like that, didn't it?
I can't remember what McLaren did. Yeah, there was I think the Diablo or something like that hit 200.
Yeah.
I'm not sure whether the F40 did. I had this one as well, which is called the Ferrari poster book, which is kind of following on from the other week where I never stick stickers anywhere. I never stuck the posters anywhere either. So they're all still in there.
Yeah. That's probably a very early motoring memory for me, is that Jag coming along. I remember people talking about it as well. I remember my dad sort of saying, oh, this is, and seeing it on original Top Gear. I think there was a clip of it. It was probably Clarkson road testing it or someone. But I remember him flooring it and obviously the delay. And then I think the stereo pops out of the, because it's got such a pin back.
Yeah, I guess at that time, that was still when we still had a car industry, didn't we? So actually, we were taking it to the Italian.
Yeah. I think bits of that, though, a lot of it were quite Fordy, weren't they? From memory. I think there were a lot of sort of cheapy parts.
Oh, quite possibly. I know Jag Ford and Aston, they sort of crossed over, didn't they?
Yeah.
Bought an Aston that had Mondeo door handles or like.
That's it, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that'll do.
Sierra wiper switch or something.
Yeah.
But really nice to chat to him. Some cool stuff in there. Nice for him also, having recently lost his father, to be able to chat about him in a positive, not sort of a doom and gloom kind of way, but actually,
yeah, definitely,
a sort of a light conversation, or as light as it can be.
I think sometimes when you've got that many memories and you've still got all the physical stuff in the cars, it kind of makes it a bit easier maybe talking about it. I think, I don't know why, but it just sort of, in a way, I mean, he held it together well, didn't he? Throughout, considering it is a recent loss. And...
Yeah. Okay. Let's we'll call it a day, and hopefully you've enjoyed that one. Thank you to James. Yeah, thank you to Jonny Smith for putting us in touch.
Yeah, we'll send you some referral money, Jonny.
If you've not listened to the episode with Jonny Smith, it's very good. So please go and have a look at that, and also check out Paul Harding as well, and another previous guest of Jonny Smith. So Yeah, thank you very much, John.
Thank you.
Yeah, we'll wrap it up. Roll the credits.
Thank you for listening to My Dad's Car. I hope you enjoyed the show. Please support us. Buy us a coffee and subscribe. And tell all your friends.